Hello, everyone, and welcome here to our third ever podcast of Turnpike Talks. I'm James Blaker, alongside here with Joel, the Jersey Kid Rexach, and our producer, Rob McDermott. And we're going to be going over the Week 11 recap of the 2020 NFL season so far.
A lot of great games to break down. Going to Thanksgiving special. Let's get to it.
The Arizona Cardinals and Seattle Seahawks, in which the Seahawks won at 28-21. Kyler Murray threw for 269 yards on offense so far, 8 in total offense, and he had a really honest game so far. But nonetheless, the Cardinals, they unfortunately lost this game. It was a very highly contested battle between Russell Wilson and Kyler, two baseball players, and unfortunately, Kyler couldn't pull this one out. It's going to be a tight one so far here in the NFC West.
Yeah, definitely a tight one, James. Russell Wilson had a modest game, 197 yards and 2 TDs. I think what really cemented this game was Carlos Hyde being able to pick up 79 yards of TD on 14 carries and really just being that RB1 for them where they suffered a lot of injuries. The defense stepped up, getting a big sack at the end of the game to seal the game. I think great win for Seahawks. All right, so heading into this matchup, we got the Eagles and the Browns. Eagles fell down on the road 17-22. Wentz, 235 yards, 2 T's, and 2 picks. I mean, the guy's throwing interceptions or turning the ball over in every game, it seems like. Goddard is one of his favorite receivers in the absence of Ertz, picked up 77 yards in a TD. Okay performance out of Eagles, but couldn't beat those Browns, James.
Just going over the Browns, although this was a poorly bad weather game so far, Baker threw for 204 yards, even though he didn't have a touchdown in the game. The running game really saved him. Chubb is obviously one of the best runners along with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt had one of the best touchdowns I've ever seen, where he just dove over several defenders and got into the end zone. Nonetheless, a great performance for the Browns, and they're still staying in the division so far, despite having these competitive games with really poor teams so far. So we got to go now to the NFC South, where the Saints defeated the Falcons 24-9. Ryan threw for 232 yards, 2 interceptions. The offense struggled throughout the game, Joel, and they had a hard time in the red zone as well. They had kicked 3 field goals in the game, and Ryan, he just continued to have a terrible performance so far for the Falcons, and it's been showing all throughout the season so far.
Yeah, I think this couldn't have been a better start for the Saints and Taysom Hill, to be specific, as he got his first NFL career start at the age of 30. I think that's awesome to say, James. He was playing a hybrid role, and you could see him lining up in different slots. So definitely one of those unique players that everyone is dying to figure out what's he going to do. 2 rushing touchdowns. Overall, just really beat up on this Falcons team. Had a chance to get back into it, the Falcons, but overall, Saints take it at home. Big win. Heading over to Bengals and Washington. Bengals go down 9-20. Story of the game is not the score, though. Joe Burrow, unfortunately, got carted off the field, James. Tough one for the number 1 overall pick. He's diagnosed with the MCL and torn ACL. Guy is not going to be able to play till next year. I think the Bengals really, really messed up with letting him stay on the field and so many drop backs. I mean, the guy was getting killed.
Yeah, and it was truly unfortunate for Cincinnati that was the case. But Washington's defense was really able to dial up and pressure Burrow all throughout the game. He was really not a factor while he was in the game. Alex Smith, he threw for a touchdown, had 1 interception in the game. Gibson ran for 64 yards and a touchdown. It was a good win for Washington. It's not really surprised because these are 2 really teams that are at the bottom of the barrel right now. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Washington will do looking forward, because they still are competitive in that NFC East division so far. The next game, in which the Panthers defeated the Lions 20-0. It was a tough game for the Lions. They really couldn't get things started. You thought they had some chances in this game, but not a lot was going for them. Swift really struggled in the game. Stafford really struggled in the game. And it was really hard for their tight end, Hockenson, to get something going as well. He did have some good performance in this game, but nonetheless, they got shut out by the Panthers.
Yeah, James, another quarterback start for this one. P.J. Walker coming out of the XFL. I don't know if you saw some of his games. Really solid guy. He threw for 258 yards, 2 picks, though, and a touchdown, so could have been a little bit of better performance. Still got the win at home, though. Mike Davis being the lead running back in the absence of McCaffrey, of course, with that shoulder injury. Now he picked up a touchdown himself. Not a bad outing, but they beat up a bad team, so don't know if it's a legit win. Steelers and Jaguars. Steelers take them out, 27-3. Clean win to make the Steelers 10-0. Only undefeated team in the NFL, James. Man had 267 yards, 2 TDs. It looked like a trap game going into it, as the Jaguars gave Packers last week a tough game, but they held out and they got that win. So go Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really much to say about the Jaguars in this game. They did put up a good fight in the first quarter by getting 3 points, but nonetheless, it was really tough throughout. Lawton struggled against the Curtin defense so far, the Steel Curtain defense. It's a revival we've been seeing so far. And I'm just pretty interested to see with the Steelers. They're just undefeated. They're continuing to go on this good roll right now. The Jaguars, is really nothing much to say other than they need to improve for next season. Let's go on now over to the Tennessee Titans and Baltimore Ravens. This was a very tight one, Joel, in which the Titans won 30-24 in overtime. It was a very rowdy game. The Titans tried to pick things up. They were struggling all throughout, but they fought back in this game. And who could forget that King Henry touchdown at the end, in which they thought they were going to get a field goal, but King Henry said hell no. And they eventually got the overtime victory. This was definitely a big win for the Titans, and it's going to bring them up in their division so far. Meanwhile, I don't know much about Baltimore.
Big win for Titans. A strong outing by Baltimore. I mean, let's talk about some of what they were able to do. The rookie running back Dobbins, he was able to pick up 70 yards and a touchdown. Andrews, tight end, picked up another 96 yards and a touchdown. This is a strong performance, but I mean, again, they went to OT, couldn't stop King Henry to get into the end zone, and you knew the Titans were going to feed him the ball. There's no way they were not going to give him the ball, right? He already had one OT win. He's going to get another one. I think the most surprising thing is when those Titans were rubbing their cleats all over the Ravens logo. This will not be the first time we hear about these teams having beef.
In which the Texans won 27-20 over the New England Patriots. It was a really big shootout so far. Newton threw for 365 yards. He had great touchdown passes as well. And nonetheless, we see Damiere Byrd. He had great 6 receptions for 132 yards and 7 targets. But unfortunately, the Patriots couldn't get it done on their last drive. They couldn't really fight back in this game, and it's going to cost them in the division so far.
Yeah, real big shootout out in Texas. Watson finally gets that big win he was searching for, where he was dominant. 344 yards and 2 TDs, James. I love this guy. He carried for another 36 yards and another TD. The game was close throughout, but the Texans were able to take that game at home, being determined and fight off those paths. It's always a great matchup when these teams face off. Bill Belichick has a lot of respect for Deshaun Watson. I think this is, sad to say that this is only his 3rd win, but hopefully more wins to come because the guy's great. He's my MVP. Heading over to Dolphins and Broncos. Broncos take out those Dolphins, James. 2013. Confusing game here. I think that this one was the best beat or the worst beat of the week for sure. I was surprised Tua only threw for 83 yards. I mean, 83 yards, right? You throw that sometimes in half. He only threw for a touchdown. He showed signs of not playing well, so they put in Fitzpatrick. He threw a pick. I mean, I was like, what's going on with this game? You got Fitzpatrick, Tua not being efficient. Defense was getting racked on. What happened here?
Yeah, I'm really confused about this game as well. I'm surprised that the Broncos even pulled this one out. But Drew Lock, he had a great performance, 270 yards, no touchdowns in the game. Melvin Gordon, he had himself a game with 84 yards and 2 touchdowns in the game. Just a great performance offensively overall for the Broncos, and then able to pull this one out against a surprisingly good Dolphins in this season. So I'm pretty much excited to see what's going to happen moving forward, but it's truly unfortunate for the Dolphins to lose this game.
We got Chargers and Jets. Chargers take them out, 34-28. Jets still fighting for that first win. Joe Flacco had himself a decent game, throwing 205 yards, 2 TDs and a pick. Gore picked up a TD himself, which he doesn't always get. So it's glad to see that they're not just working him and actually getting him in the end zone. I'm glad that they were able to put up a fight, but still not enough to stack up against that firepower offense in those Chargers.
It was a great performance for Herbert in this game. He came back after a tough loss to the Dolphins. He threw for 366 yards, 3 touchdowns in the game. Allen had a great game as well, being 16 for 19 and having 145 yards and 1 touchdown in the game. Truly a great offense for Justin Herbert. He has a lot of talent around him, and hopefully he takes advantage of that in the future. It truly is a very good offense. I'm really hoping for the Chargers could move forward, and they are struggling right now, but they could move forward as a result of this. All right, so let's go over now to the big game so far, the Colts and Packers, in which the Colts won 34-31 in overtime in this game. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers could not overcome these Colts, and I was pretty surprised about that, even in overtime. He threw for 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Devontae Adams caught 7 receptions, 106 yards in this game. This game was very close for the Packers. They had a very good beginning. They just couldn't finish it out.
So, yeah, James, I mean, looking at this from my perspective, Rivers had a great game, 288 yards, 3 TDs, and he was able to find the rookie target for Pittman. But I don't think this was the rookie that everybody was talking about. Rodrigo Blankenship. He kicked the game-winning field goal in OT. Definitely the narrative. I was happy to see him. He missed one of those kicks, so people were kind of on the fringe about, was he going to miss this one with the pressure on him? Ice in his veins, got it through the post.
Over to this Sunday night football game in which the Chiefs won 35-31. I was close and right on my prediction. Chiefs won, luckily enough, but the Chiefs luckily were able to pull this one out. They were able to win this one against a team that they lost to previously. And Mahomes, he picked up 348 yards, 2 touchdowns in the game, 1 interception. Kelsey continues to show up as a tight end. He had 8 receptions for 127 yards and had a touchdown as well, the final one at the end. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, proven to be a very good rookie so far. 69 yards, 2 touchdowns in the game. This offense is unstoppable, Joel, and I feel like that they're going to keep that going and have a good one against the Pittsburgh Steelers if they play them at all.
I really sure hope so, because that will be the matchup that everyone sees. Everyone wants to know if they will be the ones to give them their first L. But let's talk about that later, James. Let's talk about this Carr performance. Had himself a game too. 270 yards, 3 TDs, another pick. Might be the reason why we cost it, but Mahomes got a pick too, so we'll let him be. Tight end talk on the Raiders too. We got Darren Waller that had himself a game as he shines bright, getting 7 receptions, 88 yards in a TD. Not enough offense to beat off those Chiefs, but 1-1, you can't be mad at the split between the Raiders and the Chiefs.
So let's go on over to the Monday Night Football game in which the Rams won 27-24 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Huge game for the Rams as Jared Goff threw 376 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Even though he had 2 interceptions in the game, he was just throwing it all throughout, so it wasn't really that much of a surprise. Cooper Kupp had 11 receptions for 145 yards. Robert Woods, 12 receptions for 130 yards and a touchdown in the game. The wide receivers were unbelievable in this game, Joel, and it was a very good performance last night for the Rams.
And that's surprising to say, right, James? Because that's not the wide receiver core that everybody's talking about. But let me not get into the wide receiver core because that's not really my beef here. It's Tom Brady. Where is 2-minute Tom that everybody wants to talk about when he was in the Patriots? And why is it not translating to the Bucks? I don't know. I want to go ahead and look at this play, but the reason why I want to look at this play is because this is what sealed the deal for the loss, James. Unfortunately, Tom Brady is showing that there's cracks in his shield, and unfortunately, he could not take his team down the field, tie the game, and send him to an OT. Let's look at this play and see why they lost.
2nd and 10. Here's Brady over an outstretched hand, and it's too far.
Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are on our 3rd episode of the podcast, so just make sure you go ahead and follow us on social media at Turnpike Talks, or you go ahead and subscribe to our website at turnpiketalks.com. In the meantime, we just want to say thank you to all the troops and everybody else that's serving the country right now during these tough times. Really do appreciate all your service.
Yeah, well, in the meantime, catch us on the Turnpike on Turnpike Talks.
Lady.